All right, so welcome everyone. This is the Build, Refine, and Explain Models Faster with SAS via Copilot talk. I want to thank everybody for sticking it out. I know it's been a long day, and everybody's looking forward to getting to that party, but hopefully this will be worth the stay. My name is Ben Tomlinson. I'm a principal software developer at SAS. I specifically work on SAS Model Studio and the integration of SAS via Copilot within Model Studio. So that's what obviously we're going to be talking about today. So hopefully I don't have to explain what SAS via Copilot is. Hopefully you've heard about it over the last few days. But just in case, it is our natural language interface that allows users to interact directly with SAS via. And I'm going to be talking about how we're using that to work inside of SAS Model Studio. SAS Model Studio, which you may not be as familiar with, is our browser-based low-code, no-code interface for building machine learning pipelines. So what we're going to see today is how via Copilot is making that an even easier task. So SAS via Copilot inside of Model Studio actually released in December of 2025. We were one of the first applications to have SAS via Copilot embedded inside of it. And as part of that release, we had four main features that I've listed here. So it's the ability to build your pipeline kind of one node at a time, improve models and other types of nodes that exist within your pipeline, explain the results, that would be the full results of a node, and then just answer some general questions. But what I want to talk about today is actually some of the new features that are going to be coming out in the coming months inside Model Studio. So kind of the next step in our progression within via Copilot in general is a move towards more agentic capabilities. It's kind of a natural progression along the lines of AI technologies. And so I've outlined here four key areas that we're working on inside of Model Studio to become more agentic. The first one, up in the top left, is our end-to-end automation. Now this is the ability for us to actually go completely through the process of creating a project, creating the pipelines and models within that project, and actually publishing out a champion model. And we can do all of these steps inside of SAS via Copilot. Next one I point out is our pipeline tuning. So I mentioned that we had some tuning and improvements in the current version, but in the new one, we're actually going beyond just tuning an individual node and allowing you to tune the entire pipeline at one time. Down on the bottom, we also have listed here the ability to do what-if scenarios, and I'll show you this in the demo. But the idea is that you can ask questions of, well, what if I change this into my pipeline? Would it actually improve the accuracy of my model? And then the final one here is just kind of a general concept of being more agentic, and that's allowing the user to ask more flexible things, do longer tasks, things that require actual chaining of actions, and then even, I've added in here the idea of targeted explanations, and we'll see what that looks like when we actually get into the demo. Now the idea of SAS via Copilot is that it exists across all of our different applications. This particular flow that I'm showing here is actually our analytics lifecycle flow. And the particular part that we're going to talk about is Model Studio, and it's the middle piece. We're actually developing the models. You can see the via Copilot is in all these different places. But I also wanted to show something else about how we're building these next step agentic capabilities. And we're doing that using the MCP concept, which is the Model Context Protocol. So what this allows us to do is actually provide some of these tools outside of VIA for inclusion in other frameworks, which I've listed here. And so this idea of building these MCP tools in servers allows us to not only use them in our agentic flows, but also allows you to use them in your agentic flows that you might already have within your company. So you'll see this concept of via Copilot being inside of different applications and providing these MCP servers kind of across the VIA platform. All right, so that was just kind of the intro of what we're going to talk about, but what we're really here for is actually the demo, so let's jump into that. So here I am inside of SAS Model Studio. As I mentioned before, the idea here is a low-code, no-code application that allows you to build machine learning pipelines. So what we want to do is we want to actually see how SAS Viya Copilot can help with that. So I launch Copilot up here in the top. Now it gives me this window where I can interact with it. I'm actually going to go ahead and ask it to, so you can see down here at the bottom, to create me a new project and go ahead and set up the pipeline for me. So this is part of that end-to-end flow that I was talking about before. Now I'll explain this so we can actually see what it's doing. This is part of that automation where we can go from data all the way into a project, setting up the variables that we need, and even creating a pipeline for us. Now in this mode, what we see is actually the Copilot showing us the different steps that it has taken and that it is currently taking. So we see it found my data. Actually, there were two data sources that matched on loan, and it picked one of those. It went ahead and went faster than I was ready. That's okay. Nothing wrong with it being quick. So it actually went ahead and, I'll show this down here at bottom, went ahead and it retrieved all the different types of pipelines it could create, created a project for me, actually retrieved the variable metadata for me, and went ahead and set up that information. And then it gave me a nice natural language output of everything that it's created. It tells me about the data that it used, the target that it picked. It went ahead and created me a pipeline. And it actually gave me some information about what's inside the pipeline. So let's open up the project and look at what it created. So here we are inside of our project. We can already see that, yes, it indeed did pick the bad variable and set that to my target. This happens to be loan data around whether or not they've defaulted. So that bad column is yes or no, they've defaulted. So that's what we want to predict. We can also see that it created that pipeline that it told us about, right? So it went ahead and looked at my data, looked at the type of variable I was working with, and decided this was a good pipeline for me to start with. So it's already added some different nodes for me and things, kind of accelerating that process for me and getting me farther along. Let's say I was doing this and I actually just wanted to, I was already in a project and I just had my data node and I wanted Copilot to help me at this point actually figure out what should be added. So I'm going to go back over here to the Copilot and ask it to help me on that. What I'm asking it here is for it to look at my data and figure out what type of pre-processing nodes I might need to address any of the existing issues. So types of issues that we might see would be a large number of missing values, maybe skewed values, outliers, things like that. We're asking Copilot to actually go in, look at my data, and try to figure out if any of those things exist. We still see that same, workflow that we had before. And we can see that it's actually come back with quite a lot of information about what I could or what I should use based on what my variables and what my data looks like. So we can see all the way up here at the top, it thinks I should definitely have imputation. It thinks that these are some of the variables that I might be interested in knowing that there are a large number of missing values in there. We also have recommendations for replacement, for transformations, all sorts of great recommendations. Again, based on what my data actually shows, Copilot was able to figure out, well, these are the ideas, this is what maybe you should look at. So this is kind of that first step of the things I was talking about, and that was the ability to build these pipelines very quickly. But what if you already had a pipeline and you would like Copilot to help you in those scenarios? I'm going to move out of this project and go into one that I created earlier. And we'll go ahead and start a new session with Copilot. It's the same data that we were talking about before, but I already have kind of a simple pipeline in here. You can see the imputation node that it recommended and actually a logistic regression node, which makes sense for my data. But what I want to do here is I actually want Copilot to go ahead and look at a particular use case for me to see if it would be useful for me to make a change. So I mentioned this before of these what-if scenarios. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to ask Copilot to look at the what-if scenario of me changing my selection method, which right here is set to stepwise, and I've given it a couple of options. Try the forward method or a backwards method and see if those are actually going to be worthwhile for me. So this is something I definitely could do within the application, right? I could go ahead and set these values, run each one of these models, record the value of it, go back, set it to the next value, record the value of that. But we're allowing Copilot to do all that work for us, right? We've just said, hey, please go evaluate all these things and tell me which one is the best. The other nice thing about this is I haven't actually had to change the existing model. So I'm not actually required to go in and make those changes. Copilot can do it off on a separate set of nodes. It's still reusing the first two nodes that I have and all the other values from that current node, but it's doing it off to the side for me so I don't have to actually change my node if I don't want to. So it's now come back with that result, and it tells me that it I identified that it started with stepwise, and then it checked it forward, it checked backwards. I'll tell you right now, in general, this model is not very good at all, but at least it did find something that would help me out. It said, well, yeah, you actually could change the performance by switching it to the forward selection method. I could run these types of what ifs across any of the nodes and any of the different properties. It even supports the ability to do multiple nodes and multiple different properties. Again, all those combinations handled for you just by asking Copilot to do it. Now, I mentioned that this isn't a great model as is, so maybe the next thing to do is actually look at the full pipeline and try to figure out if there's better ways I can just improve it. Copilot can also help with that. Now, I mentioned before that in our current release, we allow you to go in and actually ask for improvements for individual nodes within your pipeline. In this new release, what we're actually doing is we're allowing Copilot to take the entire pipeline that exists and look across all the different nodes and decide if there are other changes I should make. Because sometimes the modeling node may not be performing well, but that's not its fault. It's because of pre-processing steps that were missed previously. Copilot's gonna go and do that work for me. Now, as it's going through this process, we'll see that it's updating down here at the bottom the number of trials that it's run and how much it's improved my actual overall selection value. I can see really quickly that before we saw it was about a 0.4 KS value, now I'm already at a 0.68. Very quickly, Copilot's already figured out that yes, this was not a great model to start with, and now it's pointing out that it can do even better. I'll also point out that in the prompt, I told it to just run for 2 minutes. That's just what I wanted to do because this is a demo. We didn't want this running for 30 minutes. So I just asked it to run for 2 minutes. So it's gonna run any number of trials it can during that amount of time, and then once it's done, it'll report back the best one that it found. So if I wanted to do this on a larger pipeline or for a much larger time, I could ask Copilot to do that. And it would just churn through all those different trials, trying all the different combinations. Now, when it does come back, like I mentioned, it will not only tell me individual changes I could make to the existing nodes, it will also potentially tell me other nodes that I can insert into my pipeline. And this is very helpful because even those nodes, it will tell me the specific values that I should set on them to actually achieve the value that it is reporting down here at the bottom. So it's not just add a replacement node, it's add a replacement node with these 3 properties. So it's already done all the work in the background to build all of that knowledge for us. Again, this is quite a step forward for us from the just improving a single node to allowing you to improve the entire pipeline. All right, so it looks like it's actually finished, and yeah, here we go. So let's see what it did. So not only, obviously it increased our KS value quite dramatically, which is great. Makes for a nice demo to start with a not great model. We see that it ran a bunch of trials for me, and here are those recommendations I was speaking of. So inside of logistic regression, it found a couple of different things I might change. Inside of my imputation node, some things I might change, and even some new nodes that I should add. It also makes the comment down here that these haven't been applied yet, because again, this is working to the side of what we have over there on the left, and so now I can read over these results and decide if I want to go ahead and apply those. It's not requiring me to apply them, it's giving me that option. So then I can say, yes, these look great, let's go ahead and apply all of them, and it'll update my full pipeline. Okay, so we've seen building a pipeline, how we can make that quicker. We've now seen the ability to actually refine the pipeline, whether that's on a single node, trying what ifs, but also over the entire flow or the entire pipeline, what can Copilot show me? So the last thing I want to show here is actually the ability to ask specific questions about the results inside of this pipeline. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll just clear this all out because I don't want to work with those results. I'm going to create a new chat here, and let me open up the results of our linear regression. Now, in the previous release, we had the ability to take all of these results and ask Copilot to summarize all of them. And you get a very long document, a lot of information in there, that's great. But now what we're adding is the ability for you to do targeted questions on the actual results that we see on the screen here. So I'm actually going to click over, let's do the lift report, that's a good one. So I'm going to ask it to explain the lift report results. So what I'm expecting it to do, which is what it says it's doing here, is collect all of the different results that exist inside of this report, and then pull out the very specific one that I asked for and generate an explanation just of that one chart. So it's found all the ones that existed. There's 16 different ones on all these different pages. Now I'm asking it to generate the actual report for that lift chart. Now the great thing about this is, of course, because it has access to the lift chart itself, it will actually pull out specific values from it, right? It's not just a general explanation of what a lift chart is, which it could do. It has also pulled out specific values from my data and actually laid them out here. I can see that by it actually pulling out the validation, train, and test values. It even is telling me which part falls into the different buckets of the lift, whether that's at the 10% or the top 5%. There's even more information down here about different other pieces that it captured, because there's multiple different types of lift that we're showing in here. And down here at the bottom, it gave me an overall suggestion, or rather conclusion of my results, right? So it tells me that what it does and whether or not it's actually effective. This allows you to really drill into the individual reports that are here and understand them better. You still have the opportunity to get all of the information if you would like it, but this allows you to get the very targeted information that you may want for a particular graph. You can also then ask follow-up questions about it, right? Let's say I was looking at this and I didn't understand, what's a good example? Like why it's talking to me about response percentages in the top 5 or top 10%. So I could ask, what is the difference between the top 5% and top 10%, right? So I can drill down even more and ask it even more specific questions about the data that I'm seeing. We're allowing Copilot to have access to all that information and have a better idea of what's really being shown on the screen, so it can allow you to drill into these things. And we can say that, or we can see rather, that again, it repeated some of the same information that we saw before, but maybe the most important thing down here was down here at the bottom, the really definition of why it showed me top 5 versus top 10. Again, allowing me to get more and more information about what's in those charts and to better understand it. All right, so to recap, what we've seen here is the ability for Copilot to help you all the way through the entire process. I didn't show publishing, but I could ask it to actually publish my model, but we saw it being able to build a project and build the pipelines that go in it. Then we saw the ability to actually refine those pipelines. A lot of people already have existing ones, so you can use Copilot to go in and ask for tuning for the pipelines or specific what-ifs within those pipelines. And then finally, even more power of understanding the actual results that come out of running one of these pipelines and coming out of these actual nodes, and being able to drill in on very specific targeted questions on the actual results themselves. Again, this is stuff that's coming out in the future inside of Copilot, and we're pretty excited about it. So that's everything that I'd like to show today, and so if we have any questions, I'm welcome to take those. Get my earphones, 1 second.
Does this work with visual forecasting and the hierarchical models?
So this doesn't currently work with visual forecasting, but that is on our roadmap because they're both, because it's actually in the Model Studio product as well. So it's definitely one that we're looking at. We're also looking at adding it for the visual text analytics as well. And so I can't tell you the exact date on forecasting, but yes, that is coming in the future.
Okay. So this year maybe, or do you know?
I would like to say yes, but I can't promise that, to be honest. Yes. Other questions?
Hi, I was just curious, is there any potential issues with understanding or the terms that a human is using when trying to communicate with Copilot, and maybe misinterpretation based on definitions or terms used?
Right, so that's obviously a possibility. right? Anytime you interact with an LLM, there can be misunderstandings, things like that. But what we try to do is we try to provide the correct context, particularly the SAS language context, or the SAS, not just the language, but the actual wording that we would use to kind of bridge that gap, right? And so we've actually seen great results just on the foundational models, but also when you add in our knowledge as well, it tends to understand. But yes, I mean, it's an LLM, so it's going to make mistakes. But in general, I think we've seen really great results.
Just one follow-up question. Is this only available in English, or is this available in other languages?
Oh, okay, that's a good question. So currently, VIA Copilot in general is only available in English. And so we're currently taking an approach of moving to a new language when all of the instances or all the products that are using it are ready. So it's kind of a big lift to move to the next one. But yes, today it is only in English.
Sorry, one more question
Oh,
now.
yeah, of course.
Do you guys have like a roadmap of like which languages you would do next if it's going to be one at a time?
We don't have a specific roadmap, but we would be interested in hearing what you think would be like kind of the next one. So we're currently in the stage of gathering information about where we think we'd have the biggest impact. So I can't tell you where we would go next, but I'd love to hear from you afterwards if you have suggestions.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Hi, great presentation. Does this work with other types of models like neural nets and gradient boosting?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So any type of model, and I'll go back and show the list that you see. Oops. Any of the ones you see listed here, it works with. So I think you mentioned neural net and gradient boosting, and obviously they're in there. So yes, any of these different models we work with, and then also any of the pre-processing nodes, they also all work in the suggestions and things that we saw before. Any node that's supported within the machine learning space, the features that I showed work.
Text mining is on this list here.
So text mining here is not the full visual text analytics product, right? Yes. Any other questions? No? All right, well, I appreciate y'all stopping by. And if you do have questions, feel free to find me and enjoy the rest of your conference. Thank you.